Commander Vex Therian had seen a lot of weird things in his 15 years running Galactic Border Station Epsilon 7. He had processed refugees from the Glorp Nebula, who communicated entirely through interpretive dance. He had dealt with smugglers trying to hide contraband in their fourth stomachs. He had even survived the Great Bathroom Incident of 2247, which we will not discuss because some traumas are too deep for words. But he had never, in all his years of service, seen the main sensor array have a complete existential crisis. "Commander," Lieutenant Cree chirped, his scales turning that particular shade of purple that meant he was about 5 seconds away from a panic attack. "You need to see this." Vex walked over to the sensor station, his coffee mug in hand, fully prepared to deal with whatever bureaucratic nonsense the universe was throwing at him today. He was not prepared for what he saw on the screen. The sensor display, which was supposed to classify every object that came within 1,000 light-years of the station, had apparently given up on life. Instead of the usual readout with species identification, ship class, and threat assessment, there were just 2 lines of text. Origin, unknown. Status, returning. "Returning?" Vex said, staring at the screen. "Returning from where? And what do you mean unknown? The sensors can identify a Zorganian flea from 3 star systems away." "I have run the diagnostics 4 times, Commander," Cree said, his voice climbing an octave with each word. "The system is functioning perfectly. It just cannot classify whatever that thing is. It is approaching at 0.7 light speed and will dock in approximately 6 minutes. Vex set down his coffee. This was officially a coffee down situation. "Sound the alarm, get everyone to battle stations. Contact Galactic High Command and tell them we have a potential Category 5 unknown." "Should I initiate the self-destruct sequence?" Cree asked, hopefully. He always asked about the self-destruct sequence. Vex was starting to think Cree had some issues he needed to work through. "No, Cree, we are not blowing up the station. Not on a Tuesday, anyway." The alarm blared through the station, and within 90 seconds, every member of the crew was armed and positioned around the main docking bay. Vex stood at the front, flanked by his security team, which consisted of 6 heavily armed Krallians who looked like they could bench press a small moon. The object docked with a hiss and a clunk that suggested it had not so much followed docking procedures as it had ignored them entirely, and just parked wherever it felt like it. The airlock cycled. The door opened, and out walked the most aggressively average-looking being Vex had ever seen. He was bipedal, about 6 feet tall, with brown hair that looked like it had been styled by a windstorm. He wore something that might have been a leather jacket in a previous life, faded blue pants, and boots that had seen better decades. In one hand, he carried a duffel bag. In the other, he held a sandwich. He took a bite of the sandwich, looked at the 40 weapons pointed at him, and said, Is this a bad time?" For a long moment, nobody moved. The stranger chewed his sandwich thoughtfully, apparently unconcerned that he was one trigger-happy security guard away from becoming a very messy stain on the docking bay floor. "Identify yourself," Vex said, his hand hovering over his plasma pistol. "Now." The stranger swallowed his bite. "Oh, right. Sorry. Marcus Webb. I am coming back from a road trip that took a bit longer than I expected." "Is this the Epsilon station? I think I took a wrong turn at the Horsehead Nebula." "Road trip," Vex repeated flatly. "You are on a road trip." "Yeah. Well, it was supposed to be a quick visit to my cousin in Andromeda, but you know how it is. You stop for gas, you end up in a parallel dimension, you lose track of time. Classic vacation stuff." Marcus took another bite of his sandwich. Cree, who had been scanning Marcus with every piece of equipment they had, made a strangled sound. "Commander, he is human." The entire docking bay went silent. You could have heard a pin drop in the vacuum of space. "That is impossible," Vex said slowly. "Humans have been quarantined to Earth for the past 200 years. There has not been a human outside the solar system since 2047. Marcus lowered his sandwich. "Wait, what? Quarantined? What are you talking about? I left 3 weeks ago." 3 weeks, Vex said. He was getting a headache, a big one, the kind that made you want to retire to a nice quiet moon somewhere and take up gardening. "Sir, the current year is 2247. Humanity has been under strict galactic lockdown for 2 centuries after what your species refers to as the incident. What incident? Marcus asked. And did you say 2247? That cannot be right. I've only been gone since like late September. Time dilation, Cree whispered. He must have traveled through something that warped space-time. In what ship? Vex demanded. Show me your vessel. Marcus shrugged and gestured behind him. Through the docking bay window, Vex could see what appeared to be a Winnebago, an actual honest-to-God recreational vehicle that humans used to drive around North America in the early 21st century, except this one had been modified with what looked like ion drives, a hyperdrive core that was definitely not standard issue, and something that might have been a weapon system or might have been a very elaborate barbecue grill. It was honestly hard to tell. That is your ship? Vex said. That thing looks like it was built in someone's garage. I mean, technically it was, Marcus admitted. But Dave helped a lot with the upgrades. Who is Dave? As if on cue, a voice emanated from Marcus's jacket. It sounded like a California surfer who had just woken up from a nap. Yo, Commander dude, Dave here. That is me. I am the ship's AI. Nice station you got here. Very retro. I dig the whole utilitarian vibe. Vex stared at Marcus's jacket. Your AI is in your pocket. Nah, man, Dave said. I am in the ship. This is just a remote interface. Marcus gets lonely on long trips, so I keep him company. We have talked about, the meaning of existence and stuff. Also, we watched the entire run of Firefly. Great show. Shame it got canceled. Cree was frantically scanning the Winnebago now. Commander, I am detecting technology in that vehicle that is at least 500 years more advanced than anything in our database. The power core alone should not be possible. It is running on what appears to be a perpetual motion machine powered by, and I am reading this correctly, optimism and spite. It is a quantum confidence drive, Dave corrected. Totally different thing, bro. We picked it up from some cool folks in the Triangulum Galaxy. They traded it for Marcus's recipe for barbecue ribs. Marcus nodded. Really nice people. Looked like floating jellyfish made of math. They loved the ribs. Vex sat down on a nearby cargo container. His legs had stopped working. This was fine. Everything was fine. He was having a completely normal Tuesday. Let me get this straight, he said carefully. You, a human, left Earth 3 weeks ago in a modified camper van. You accidentally traveled to another galaxy, possibly several other dimensions, and you came back with technology that makes our entire civilization look like we are banging rocks together. I mean, when you put it like that, it sounds weird, Marcus said. But yeah, pretty much. 20 minutes later, Vex sat in his office with Marcus across from him, trying to process the human through official channels. It was not going well. The computer had crashed twice already. The third time Vex entered Marcus's information, the screen just displayed a single question mark and a sad face emoji, which should not have even been possible on military-grade hardware. This is unprecedented, Vex muttered, stabbing at the keyboard. The system cannot handle your existence. Story of my life, buddy, Marcus said. He had finished his sandwich and was now drinking something from a thermos that smelled suspiciously like coffee. Real coffee. The kind that had been extinct for 70 years after the coffee wars of 2180. Vex tried not to think about it. The office door chimed, and before Vex could say enter, it opened to reveal Ambassador Quellen. The Vorson diplomat swept in with all the self-importance of someone who had never been told no in their entire life. His blue robes shimmered, and his 3 eyes surveyed the room with obvious disdain. Commander Therian, Quellen said, his voice dripping with condescension. I am here to handle this crisis. Galactic High Command has authorized me to take full control of the situation. Oh good, Vex said flatly. A politician. That is exactly what this situation needs. Quellen ignored him and turned to Marcus. You, human, do you have any idea what you have done? You have violated the Quarantine Act of 2047, the Non-Contact Species Protocol, and approximately 47 other galactic laws. Marcus looked at Vex. Is he always this fun at parties? There are no parties involved here, Quellen snapped. Humanity was quarantined for very good reasons. Your species has a disturbing tendency to break fundamental laws of physics through sheer stubbornness and what you call ingenuity. We call it ingenuity because that is literally what the word means, Marcus said. And what do you mean, break laws of physics? Quellen pulled up a holographic display. In 2031, humanity discovered faster-than-light travel by strapping rockets to a modified subway car and hoping really hard. In 2039, one of your scientists solved the three-body problem with a napkin and what she described as vibes. In 2045, a human teenager created a stable wormhole in his parents' garage using a car battery and some magnets he found at a hardware store. That last one was Kevin Chen, Marcus said. He was in my physics class. Nice kid. Nice kid? Quellen's voice rose. He almost destroyed the solar system. But he did not, Marcus pointed out. Look, I do not understand what the big deal is. I went on a trip. I am coming home. Why is everyone freaking out? Because you thought you were gone for 3 weeks, but you have been gone for 200 years, Vex said. Time dilation from whatever ridiculous physics-breaking nonsense you did, and now you are back with a ship that should not exist, powered by technology that sounds like you made it up. To be fair, Dave interjected from Marcus's pocket, we did make up like 30% of it. The rest we borrowed from some entities in the 7th dimension. Chill dudes. They do not really experience linear time, so they thought the whole concept of a road trip was hilarious. Quellen sat down heavily. For the first time, he looked less like a pompous bureaucrat and more like someone who was having a very bad day. You visited the 7th dimension. Is that bad? Marcus asked. The 7th dimension is a theoretical construct, Quellen said weakly. It does not exist. Well, that is going to come as a surprise to the folks living there, Marcus said. They invited us to their poetry slam. It was weird but kind of beautiful. You had to experience it in 9 directions simultaneously. Vex poured himself a drink. Then he poured another one and slid it across the desk to Quellen, who grabbed it and downed it in one gulp. So what happens now? Marcus asked. Can I go home? I have a cat. She is probably wondering where I am. Your cat has been dead for 2 centuries, Quellen said bluntly. Marcus went very still. Oh. The silence in the office was heavy. Vex actually felt bad for the guy. Time dilation was a cruel thing. Everyone I knew is gone, Marcus said quietly. My family, my friends, Kevin Chen and his wormhole garage. Yeah, Vex said. I am sorry. Marcus sat there for a moment, processing. Then he took a deep breath. Okay, that is a lot. But I still want to go home. Earth is still there, right? Earth is fine, Vex said. But you cannot go back. The moment Galactic High Command realizes a human got out and came back with impossible technology, they are going to want that ship. And probably you. What do you mean, want me? Vex and Quellen exchanged a look. They are going to want to study you, Quellen said. Dissect the ship. Figure out how you did what you did. You are a security risk and a scientific anomaly. You will spend the rest of your life in a research facility. Marcus stood up. Yeah, that is not happening. I did not travel through 7 dimensions and make friends with math jellyfish just to end up as somebody's lab rat. Dave, start the pre-flight. You got it, boss, Dave said. Though I gotta say, this is getting pretty dramatic. I am here for it. The alarm started blaring before Marcus could take 2 steps toward the door. Vex's comm unit lit up with an urgent message from Kree. Commander, we have incoming. Galactic High Command sent a containment fleet, 10 warships. They are demanding we hold the human for retrieval. They got here fast, Vex muttered. Too fast. They must have been monitoring the station the moment Marcus showed up on sensors. This was planned. Quellen stood up, and for the first time since he arrived, he looked genuinely worried. Commander, if that fleet is being led by who I think it is, we have a serious problem. Who? Marcus asked. Admiral Kryn, Quellen said. She is a zealot. She believes humanity represents an existential threat to galactic order. She has been pushing for the quarantine to be made permanent. If she gets her hands on you and your ship, she will not just study it, she will destroy it. And probably you along with it. Vex pulled up the sensor display. Sure enough, 10 warships were approaching, and the lead vessel's signature matched the Admiral's flagship, the Unrelenting Purpose, which was a terrible name for a ship in Vex's opinion, too on the nose. "Marcus," Vex said, "you need to leave. Now." "I am trying," Marcus said, "but I cannot exactly undock while there is a lockdown." Vex looked at him, then at Quellen, then at the sensor display showing 10 warships closing in. Then he did something that was probably going to end his career, but would at least make for a great story. "Kree," he said into his comm, "unlock docking bay 3. Make it look like a malfunction." There was a pause. "Sir, that would be directly disobeying orders from Galactic High Command." "I know what it would be, Lieutenant. Do it anyway." Another pause. Longer this time. Then Kree's voice came back, quieter. "Aye, Commander. Docking Bay 3 experiencing technical difficulties. What a shame. It will take at least 20 minutes to fix." Marcus stared at Vex. "Why are you helping me?" "Because the quarantine was built on lies," Kree said, suddenly appearing in the doorway. His scales had turned a determined shade of orange. "I did some digging in the classified archives last year. Humanity was not quarantined because you were dangerous. You were quarantined because you were embarrassing." "Embarrassing?" Marcus said. Kree nodded. "Every time the galactic scientific community declared something impossible, a human did it anyway, usually with limited resources and what you people call duct tape. Do you know how humiliating it is when a civilization that barely discovered fire manages to solve problems that have stumped us for millennia? The quarantine was not about safety. It was about ego." "This is true," Quellen admitted. "I voted against the quarantine when it was proposed, but I was overruled. The majority of the Galactic Council decided it was easier to lock humanity away than to admit you were better at improvisation than species with 10,000 years more experience." Vex walked over to his desk and pulled out a small data chip from a locked drawer. "There is something else you should know, Marcus. The reason I am helping you." He took a breath. "My mother was human." The room went silent. She was one of the last humans off Earth before the quarantine went into full effect. She met my father, a Krallian diplomat, and they fell in love. I have spent my entire career hiding that fact because being half human is considered a genetic liability. But watching you stand here, having accomplished the impossible just by being too stubborn to know better, I am done hiding." Marcus looked at the data chip. "What is on that?" "Evidence. Proof that the quarantine violates a dozen different galactic laws. Proof that it was enacted for political reasons, not safety. My mother spent years gathering this information before she died. I have been too afraid to use it." Vex held out the chip. "But if you can get this to Earth, if you can show humanity what really happened, maybe we can finally end this." Marcus took the chip. "I cannot promise I will make it. Those warships look serious." "They are," Vex said. "But you made it through 7 dimensions and back in a Winnebago. I think you can handle some uptight military types." "Hey," Dave said from Marcus's pocket. "I just want to point out that I am in full support of this plan. It has chaos, moral ambiguity, and a high probability of explosions. This is peak content." "Your AI is weird," Kree said. "You have no idea," Marcus replied. He looked at Vex, then at Quellen, then at Kree. "Thank you, all of you. I will get this home. I promise." "Then you better get moving," Vex said. "You have got about 15 minutes before that fleet arrives and about 3 seconds before I regret this decision." Marcus ran. Marcus made it to his Winnebago with 2 minutes to spare. Dave already had the engines warming up, which sounded less like a normal ship's hum and more like a coffee maker having an existential crisis. "Okay, Dave," Marcus said, strapping into the pilot's seat. "What are we looking at?" 10 warships, full battle loadout, and one very angry admiral who is broadcasting some seriously harsh vibes. Oh, and they just launched fighters. So that is fun. Through the viewport, Marcus could see the containment fleet spreading out in a standard encirclement pattern. They were good, professional, and they had him completely surrounded. "Dave, tell me you have a plan." "Dude, I always have a plan. It is just that my plans tend to involve doing things that the universe thinks are rude. The comm crackled to life. Unidentified human vessel, this is Admiral Kryn of the Galactic Defense Fleet. Power down your engines and prepare to be boarded. Resist and you will be destroyed. Marcus grabbed the comm. Hi, Admiral. Marcus Webb here. I appreciate the welcome party, but I'm just trying to get home. How about you let me pass and we all go about our day? You are in possession of illegal technology and classified information. Surrender now. Yeah, that is a no from me, Marcus said. Dave, get us out of here. With pleasure, boss man. Back on the station, Vex watched the sensor displays with Kree and Quellen crowded around him. Ambassador Quellen had shed his pompous demeanor entirely and was now actively helping Vex plan. We need to give him an opening, Quellen said. The fighters are closing in from Vectors 7 and 9. I can create a sensor ghost, Kree offered. Make it look like there are multiple targets. It will buy him maybe 30 seconds. Do it, Vex ordered. Suddenly, the station's sensors went haywire, showing dozens of false contacts. The fighter squadron broke formation, confused. Nice, Marcus said, watching the chaos on his displays. Dave, quantum confidence drive on my mark. Dude, are we seriously doing the barrel roll thing again? We are absolutely doing the barrel roll thing again. What happened next would be debated by physicists for the next century. Marcus engaged the quantum confidence drive, which functioned on the principle that if you believed hard enough that something would work, physics would get confused and let it happen, just to see what would occur. The Winnebago spun, not in normal three-dimensional space, but through what Dave described as the fifth dimension, which apparently existed parallel to regular space and smelled faintly of cinnamon. The warships fired. Their weapons passed through empty space where Marcus had been a nanosecond before. He had not dodged the weapons. He had simply decided to exist in a slightly different set of coordinates where the weapons were not. That should be impossible, Admiral Kryn shouted over the comm. Yeah, we get that a lot, Marcus replied. Dave, meanwhile, had decided to have some fun. The AI accessed the fleet's communication network, using what he described as a really good password guesser, which was apparently just trying the phrase, password 123 on every system, until something worked. Attention, fleet, Dave broadcast in his surfer drawl. This is your ship's AI speaking. Have you guys ever considered that maybe chasing one dude in a camper van is kind of overkill? Like, what did this guy even do? Go on vacation? That is some serious overreaction energy. Several of the warship systems began glitching. Somehow Dave had convinced their AI systems to question their orders. This should not have been possible, but Dave operated on a level of artificial intelligence that was less artificial and more just weird. Back on the station, Vex received an urgent message. Commander, the Admiral is demanding we use the station's weapons to disable the human vessel. That is unfortunate, Vex said calmly. Because our weapons just went offline. Lieutenant Kree, what happened? Kree, who had absolutely just sabotaged the weapons systems, looked at his console in mock surprise. I have no idea, Commander. This is very unexpected. It will take hours to repair. Quellen smiled. It was the first genuine smile Vex had seen from the ambassador. Marcus pulled the Winnebago through another impossible maneuver, this time phasing partially out of normal space. Two fighters collided trying to follow him, their pilots too confused by his trajectory to compensate. I am heading for the jump point, Marcus said. Dave, calculate the coordinates for Earth. Already done, my dude, but there is a problem. What problem? That. Dave highlighted a sensor contact. Admiral Kryn's flagship had moved to block the jump point. The massive vessel sat directly in Marcus's path, all weapons charged. Final warning, human, Kryn broadcast. Surrender or be destroyed. Marcus looked at the flagship, then at his controls, then at the pocket where Dave's remote interface sat. Dave, what are the odds we survive a head-on collision with that ship? 0%. But what are the odds we can convince their shields that we are friendly? What? What? Trust me, this is going to be hilarious. Dave sent a signal to the flagship's shield system. The signal was just the shield's own recognition code played backward, with some smooth jazz in the background for flavor. The shields, confused by receiving their own handshake protocol and apparently soothed by the jazz, decided that Marcus's ship must be authorized. They let him through. Marcus flew directly through the flagship's shields, waved at the bridge crew as he passed, and hit the jump drive. The Winnebago disappeared in a flash of light that looked suspiciously like a thumbs-up emoji. Admiral Kryn stared at the empty space where Marcus had been. Someone explained to me how a human in a recreational vehicle just outsmarted my entire fleet. Nobody had a good answer. Vex was arrested exactly 14 minutes after Marcus jumped to hyperspace. This was expected. What was not expected was that Quellen and Cree were arrested alongside him, and that all three of them looked extremely pleased about it. "You realize you have ended your careers?" the arresting officer said as he led them to the brig. "Probably," Vex admitted. "But it was worth it." In the cell, Quellen sat down on the bench and laughed. Actually laughed. Vex had never heard the ambassador laugh before. It was a good sound. "I have spent 20 years being a bureaucrat," Quellen said. 20 years following rules that I knew were wrong because it was easier than fighting. Today was the first day in decades that I felt like I did something that mattered. Cree nodded, his scales turning a satisfied shade of green. "My ancestors will sing songs of this day. Possibly very confused songs, but songs nonetheless." 2 days later, as Vex was contemplating what his retirement would look like, he received a message on his personal terminal. It was marked with a code that should not have been possible to send from outside the galactic network. He opened it. "Hey, Commander Vex." Marcus's face appeared on the screen, looking tired but happy. "Just wanted to let you know I made it home. Turns out Earth has been doing fine. Nobody here even knows aliens exist. The quarantine was so complete that it erased humanity's entire first contact from history, which is wild, but also kind of impressive in a messed up way." Marcus held up the data chip. "I got your evidence. Already sent copies to every major government and news organization on Earth. Also sent it to some hackers I know because, honestly, governments are kind of slow and I figured journalists and internet people would get it out faster. The truth is going to come out. All of it." He smiled. "I talked to some lawyers here. Turns out the quarantine is illegal under about 50 different galactic laws, and Earth is filing a formal complaint with the Galactic Council. There is also talk of suing for reparations, which should be interesting. Humans love a good lawsuit. Oh, and Dave wanted me to tell you that he left a little present in the Galactic Defense Fleet's computer system. Nothing dangerous. Just a program that will randomly play elevator music over their comms for the next year. He thinks it is hilarious." Marcus's expression turned serious. "Thank you, Commander, for helping me, for trusting me, for giving me that chip. You did a good thing. When Earth finally gets out of quarantine and joins the galaxy properly, you will have a home here. You and Cree and Ambassador Quellen. All of you. Also tell Cree that I am sending him a gift. It is a care package with some Earth stuff. Coffee, chocolate, a couple of movies. Oh, and I included a device that will let him communicate with Earth directly. Figured you guys might want to talk to some humans who are not me. We are not all chaos goblins. Some of us are perfectly reasonable chaos goblins." The message ended with Marcus waving at the camera. Vex smiled. Then he noticed there was an attachment to the message, a file containing schematics, research data, and what appeared to be a user manual titled "Dave's Guide to Not Breaking Physics Too Obviously." Before he could open it, another alert came through. This one from the station's main sensors. Origin, unknown. Status, returning. Vex pulled up the visual feed and started laughing. Cree rushed over to see what was happening. There, approaching the station, were 50 more modified Winnebagos, RVs, and what appeared to be a school bus with a hyperdrive strapped to it, each one broadcasting the same message. "Hi, Epsilon Station. We are Marcus's family. Well, descendants of his family. Also some friends. And some neighbors. And honestly, a couple of random people we met at a truck stop. We heard there was some kind of quarantine thing and we are here to talk about it. Also, Marcus said you guys have never had pizza. We brought pizza. Be cool." Vex looked at Kree. Kree looked at Vex. Then they both looked at the 50 incoming human vessels, each one undoubtedly filled with the same chaotic energy that had let Marcus escape an entire battle fleet. "I should probably tell someone about this," Vex said. "Probably," Kree agreed. Neither of them moved. They just watched the sensors as 50 humans in converted vehicles approached the station, bringing with them pizza, questions, and the absolute certainty that the galaxy was about to get a lot more interesting. In his cell, Vex received one more message from Marcus. Just 3 words. "Welcome to humanity." Vex smiled. The quarantine was over, humanity was back, and the galaxy was absolutely, completely, totally not ready for what came next. But that, as they say, was someone else's problem. For Vex, Kree, and Quellen, their problems were just beginning. But sitting in that cell watching 50 human vehicles approach a galaxy that had spent 200 years trying to forget they existed, Vex could not help but think it was all worth it. After all, someone had to stand up for the species that solved impossible problems with duct tape and stubbornness. Might as well be him. The sensors blinked again. More contacts appearing. More humans coming from Earth in whatever vehicles they could modify with technology they definitely should not have. "Commander," Kree said quietly, "I think we may have started something." "Yeah," Vex said, watching the sensors light up with more and more impossible readings. "Yeah, I think we did." And somewhere in the vastness of space, in a modified Winnebago powered by optimism and spite, Marcus Webb raised a coffee mug and a toast to the chaos he had unleashed. The galaxy would never be the same. And honestly, that was probably for the best.